Hey guys, what's going on? So I'm sitting here in the parking lot of the criminal court complex because I have court coming up here in just a little bit, and it got me thinking that this would be a good topic for a video because a lot of people don't really know what an officer's role is in the court process. You know what you see on TV, you see the lawyers, you see all this sort of stuff, but what happens on a regular basis? So what happens after an officer makes an arrest? Sure, the bad person goes to jail, but what do the police have to do from that point forward? In this video, we're going to talk about law enforcement officers' role and the court process after making a criminal case. If you're new to this channel, we cover law enforcement related topics like this one, along with actually bringing you on calls with me. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Now, I've said in the past, I can only speak for the process in my general area. I know from talking to officers in other states, this process can vary quite a bit. So if you'd like to share, feel free to leave what your agency does in the comments below. Okay, so you've made an arrest. Now, this can be a physical arrest or in the form of a notice to appear or NTA. Criminal citations and NTAs are considered an arrest in the eyes of the court system, so you do not always have to be handcuffed and taken off to jail. To keep it simple, we're going to discuss the standard physical arrest, which most people are familiar with when hearing about or having seen it on TV. So if you've gotten to this point, some kind of criminal investigation has been conducted and criminal charges have been developed. You're either going to have misdemeanor charges or felony charges. This comes into play a little bit further down the road in the officer's responsibilities after the arrest. We'll get into that in a minute. The first step in any arrest is completing what's called an arrest affidavit. These are done electronically nowadays, but used to be a handwritten form which you turn in at the jail once the arrestee was transported there. With the implementation of the electronic affidavits, we rarely transport our prisoners to the jail anymore. There's actually a contract service which a van comes around all throughout the county and takes custody of the arrested subjects and brings them to jail for the different agencies in the area. The arrest affidavit is the very first step in the court process, which says that there's a probable cause belief that a crime has been committed. I'm not going to get all the way into it, but the easiest way I could explain probable cause is it probably happened. Once this is reviewed by a judge and confirmed, the arrestee is officially charged with the alleged crime. Now, the setting of bonds, first appearances, what goes on at the jail, the booking process, officers like myself are not involved in that process, so we don't really have anything to do with it. Our next step is to complete what's called an offense report, or commonly referred to as a police report. This is a detailed account of what took place during the event and the investigation, to include victim statements, witness statements, suspect interviews, photographs, video, any kind of other evidence that would support the allegations that are being made. Now, like I mentioned, depending on whether you have felony charges or misdemeanor charges is going to affect what the officer does next. If they're misdemeanor charges, small crime, after the officer completes their report, it's forwarded off to the state attorney's office and assigned to an assistant state attorney. Whoever this case is assigned to, they're going to review the report, they're going to potentially contact the victim and decide how to move forward with this case. Typically, the officer doesn't have to do anything else at this time. Now, if the charges are felony charges, the officer completes the same report, everything's the same as far as that goes, but they set what is called a live invest. Essentially what this is a one-on-one meeting with that assistant state attorney who gets the case, and the victim, witnesses, anybody on the victim's side of it, so to speak. It's a chance for us all to meet face to face, and it gives the opportunity for the state attorney to ask questions directly of everyone involved and try and form a better idea of how to move forward. Once either of the two above scenarios are completed, then the court process can take several different paths depending on several different factors. The most important is usually whether or not the person being charged with the crime pleads guilty or not guilty. Typically, if they plead guilty, there's no trial and the officer isn't involved again in the case. The state and the defense talk between each other, depending on the person's criminal background, various things, and they come up with a plea deal, or a final ruling, punishment, so to speak, is determined during that process and then put into place. Now, If the defendant pleads not guilty, then the next steps will be the typical court process. So the defendant will have gotten a lawyer, either a private lawyer that they go and pay for, or a public defender, which is the state appointed defense attorney, kind of like the opposite of the state attorney. Anyway, once the defendant's attorney speaks with his client and gets their side of the story, they discuss options if they move forward with a trial or make a deal with the state. One of the first steps in this process, which involves the officer, is called a deposition. This essentially is the defense attorney's version of a live invest. It gives them the chance to interview the officer, review their report, and speak to other involved parties and try to find holes in the case. Basically something that would help them win the case in court if it went to trial. After the deposition, depending on what's learned, can again decide the path that it goes. If they learn the case is really well done and there aren't any holes, they might talk to their client again and say, hey, let's look at some of our options, maybe strike a deal, let's not take this to trial, we don't have a good chance of winning. Or if two things can happen, they could find holes in the report if the investigation wasn't done well and take it to trial because they think they have a good chance of winning. Or the defendant, we get people that just say, I don't care, I'm innocent, I want to take it to trial no matter what. And you get those cases too. So let's say in the other version of this scenario, the defense decides to move forward and take this case to trial. This would be what people are most used to seeing or hearing about on TV. Everyone goes to court and there's a jury and the attorneys argue back and forth and the outcome of the case is decided by a jury of one's peers. So these are the basic steps and involvement that an officer could have after making an arrest on a criminal case. The thing probably most interesting to me has been how few cases actually see court time. In my experience, and again, this is my experience, the greater majority of cases never see a trial. In 13 years, I could count on both hands how many times I've actually been to trial and had to sit on the stand. Now, I've been subpoenaed to hundreds of set trials, but usually a plea deal is made last minute and it never actually goes to court. Anyway, I hope this wasn't as clear as mud and gave you a little insight on what an officer's role is in the court process. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I will try to get back to you. If you have any suggestions for videos you would like to see or topics you would like to learn about, then please leave those in the comments as well. And if I can, I'll make a full video about it. As always, thank you to every one of you guys for all your support and time making this channel so successful. We are getting really close to 10,000 subscribers, so I'm thinking another giveaway is coming soon. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be a part of it. And until the next one, everyone have a great day and stay safe out there.